G'day everyone. For those who came in late, you're listening to Expand the Phantom podcast.
Years ago, he washed ashore the sole survivor of a shipwreck, and upon the skull of the man who killed his dad, he said, "I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice and cruelty, and all my sons will follow me, so evildoers will believe that this man cannot die."
The Phantom,
The ghost who walks,
the Phantom,
enemies beware, the Phantom's always there, but you won't find the Phantom.
We are the Expand the Phantom podcast from Chronicle Chamber. Our website is chroniclechamber.com, and you can contact us via email at chroniclechamber@gmail.com. You can subscribe to us via YouTube, iTunes, or any of the Android apps. This is episode 175, December 2020, Comics and News. My name is Stephen East. I'm joined today by Jermaine. How are you going there, Jermaine?
Yeah, very good. Thanks, mate. It's good to be chatting Phantom on together.
And it's a very special day for Jermaine. This night that we're recording, it's actually Jermaine's birthday. Happy birthday, Jermaine.
Thank you, mate. That just goes to show how much I love you guys, mate. The girls are asleep out there, and we're chatting Phantom. What a way to end a birthday.
Absolutely. And in that chuckle you can hear, if you're listening to the audio, can only be Dan the Man Fraser. How are you, Dan?
Yeah, good, Steve. I'm feeling bad right now that I didn't bring my John Sands cards to the party so I could be waving some happy birthday messages for Germ. But no, happy birthday, mate. Good of you to join us here in the 40s, and looking forward to having a chat with you about all things Phantom on your birthday.
Slight correction, still 30s for a couple more years.
Do a dirty 40s.
And so, yeah, no, still in my 30s, mate, for a little bit longer.
I realise
now in late 30s.
I realise now that I haven't worn the uniform, I'm not wearing my T-shirt like you guys are. I was planning on wearing it on Monday at work. The kids have gone, so it's just office type administration and first aid training and that sort of stuff. So
Well, it's a perfect time to wear a happy Phantoming shirt.
I think so too. So if you're watching this on the video and you're wondering why isn't Steve wearing his happy Phantoming shirts, because, well, I'm saving it for work. Just spread the love. So we have a bumper episode today, so let's get straight into it. So comics, as we review the new... Oh.
What?
There was a slight typo in the run sheet there, listeners.
Edits being made as we speak.
It was caught just in time before I said the wrong month. As we review the new comics for October to December 2020, if you agree or disagree, you can let us know via our social media accounts, which have been copping it. Well, copping is not the right word. There's been lots of conversation. Lots of action on our socials lately, which has been fantastic. Lots of interaction, which we like to see and like to read. So on Facebook, you can check us out on chroniclechamber.com and the Phantom Collector group as well. You can hit us up on Twitter at chronicle_tweet, Instagram at Chronicle Chamber, and YouTube at Chronicle Chamber. So we are multi-platform on our social media accounts. You can hit us up on many different pathways to get in contact with us.
We still don't have a TikTok account, and I'm trying to work on that, but we'll get there.
You know, TikTok, yeah. When the kids say, "Oh, you're on TikTok, Mr. East?" Yeah, it's on my list. It tells the time for me. Crazy kids. Okay, so in the last few months, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 issues that have come out from Frew during that time. That's 1877 through to 1881. So, starting off in Frew 1877, we've got The Adventures of Lucy Carey, which is the classic Lee Falk Barry story. And we have The Outlaws, which is a new story by Peter Anderson and Rafael Dantas, which is a sequel to the former story there. We'll go with The Birthday Boy. First up, what do you think of this issue there, Jermaine?
It's probably one of my favourite issues of the year. The Adventures of Lucy Carey would be probably one of my, probably in my top 20, 30 of Cy Barry stories. a fun story, features past Phantoms, the current Phantom. There's not as much, say, as action as some of the stories around that era, but it's a fun adventure. The way that Lee Falk narrates the story, and then Sybari, at his peak at that time, draws it with the darkness, with the shadows, with the villain doing this, the snapping of the fingers and stuff like that, which you can see on my screen if you're on YouTube. Things like that. It's just classic classic Phantom, classic Barry. And then you got panels like this of the big newspaper strip, where the words say so much and stuff like that. It reminds me a bit of the Tim Penny story where you've got the big boom, 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 booms. I just really love that storytelling that Lee Falk and Sybari are doing during this period.
Cool.
Yeah.
I thought you were about to go into the Outlaws then. I might just cut you there.
Cool.
Jermaine being our, not Jermaine, sorry, Dan being our resident Falkist, is this one of your top stories?
I haven't put numbers on them like Germ has to say whether it's in my top 20 or 30 or whatever. But no, it is a favourite old Lee Falk Sybari story. There's no doubt about that. I think Germ's been very. We can't avoid the fact that Sybari has enjoyed drawing Lucy Carey as well. I think it's a beautiful depiction of a young lady, and the whole story is. Yeah, I agree with the way that Jermaine's described it. It's a fun story, but it's also it's one of those ones that really beds down the generational aspect of the Phantom as well, because it is so connected between modern day or the 21st Phantom and his ancestors. So, no, really enjoy it. And for me, this is one of the examples of Sybari at his peak. This is some really high quality artwork that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
And it still stands the test of time today. Like the story was originally appeared in the dailies in 1964, so that's long before any of us were born, even Dan.
Except Dan. Page 32 and 33.
See, I was trying to help you out there, Dan.
Sorry, Dan. That's payback for saying I'm in my 40s.
I'll wear it.
But if you're looking through your comic, page 32, 33 are good examples of lots of blacks and the big letters and stuff like that as well, which on YouTube you can probably see it on my screen. So that's some good examples of what I was talking about before.
So it is a classic story, and no doubt everyone who's listening to this podcast have more than likely have read this before. We won't probably not spend too much time on it unless you guys really want to. Jermaine's mentioned a few things with the lettering and the fella who snaps, and Dan, you mentioned about Lucy Carey being drawn quite well. Is there anything else that really take away out of this story that if someone's listening to our podcast for the first time and they've seen this issue sitting on the shelves at the newsagents or at Coles, thought, I'll pick that up, but what should they expect to see?
I just think, as I said before, like it's one of those stories that really sets up who the Phantom is, the intergenerational aspect of it, but then also Lucy Carey uncovering or she never finds out who the Phantom is, but she knows the legend and is like, I can't believe that you were here 75 years ago and all that sort of stuff. It's one of those. It's one of those stories that really speaks to and establishes the Phantom lore that we really love.
Yeah, and I think you're right, because for a newer reader, you can learn a lot about the Phantom in this story. It's a brilliant point. The thing I like about it with the whole comic, in a sense, is that it's got the old and the new, and they're both enjoyable stories, and it's a good jumping on point. So, the cover's nice, and, action-packed. The stories are produced well, like the blacks are blacks, the whites are whites. It's a very good overall, a very good comic. Picky, who's the cover artist to Falk, Barry, Anderson, and Dantes have done a brilliant job, and Frew for producing the comic, in my opinion.
Yes, the cover is phenomenal, and it's very dynamic. Like you see, well, I'm looking at it myself rather than putting it to the camera. You see that thing there on the shelf. It's really dynamic, really pops. It's and I was thinking about this just today when I picked up my latest comic, and getting the file cards and just seeing really how far the covers have gone, over these last 20 or whatever, 20 or 30 years. So saying it's such a great issue, but we've only really looked at half of it. There's a second story in this issue, Dan, and it's a sequel of sorts to the first one. Would you like to lead us off on that one?
Yeah, well, I suppose I'll pick you up straight away on the word sequel, because it's technically not a sequel as such. But it's certainly set in the same narrative, I suppose. It doesn't follow on immediately from the first story, and there's not. It's got the same characters at the same time. So yeah, technicality, I suppose. I probably would have rathered. And I'm just holding it up here. This is the end of the Lucy Carey story and the start of the next one. I appreciate that on the second page of the Outlaws story, we do have the title and all the rest of it, but probably would have liked some better separation of the two stories there. Just there's that moment of going, oh, what's going on here? But that's okay.
So picking you up on that, how would you do it? Would you do a splash page like on turning the page? Would you do a couple of pages of forum letters, or would you even go as far as maybe doing a mixture of both, where maybe you have a short essay about something related to these stories, which helps as a natural breaker or separation?
Well, I certainly like the way that, and I understand the way that they have, and this is the artist and the author, the way that they've set it up there with a bit of a prologue before the actual start of the story. That's cool. I think that the letters to the editor would be fine. Those the Phantom Forum in the middle. An essay like you've described would be better, but I guess that's someone else has got to write that, someone else has got to get paid, someone else has got to spend the time to do it. So to me, I guess the easiest and cheapest way to do it would be to move the Phantom Forum letters. Although there aren't any in this particular issue. But yeah, if you could get an extra couple of pages in the middle there just to break them up. It could be an advertisement. It could be at the back we've got the subscribe. We could have had the trading cards ad or something in the middle as well. So just something to break it up. It's very minor.
Yeah, it's a minor issue.
Yeah,
but if we know anything, people like to argue about minor issues. I'm going to take issue. I think the way that they've done it is great, and it's just a nice continuous flow from one story to the next.
Yeah.
Rather than being broken up.
Yeah, I wonder if I was to be negative, I wonder if you could have joined the stories a little bit more, but yeah, I doubt that could have happened. But
no, I wouldn't do that. Yeah. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah,
I think it works well. For me, it would just put a bookmark of some sort in the middle of those two pages, just to really separate them out. But as I say, in terms of the actual story itself, I really like it. Peter Anderson, is this his first published story or his second?
No. Peter Anderson's got a couple. He's got Recon. He's got Jungle Love.
Of course.
He's got that horror story with the cannibals out in oldie England.
Oh, the Scottish one.
Was that him?
Yeah, that was him.
That's very different to his other one.
If you click on his link, it will bring up all of his stories. So he's got Shangri-La, Jungle Love, Recon, Evil Lurks in the Night, which is the one that we were just talking about with Voights, Inked in Blood, Part 1 and Part 2, and then this
Of course. All right. Well, my apologies, Peter, for...
So he's reasonably prolific there, Dan.
Suggesting this is only your second. You're right. We've read a lot of his stories. But I guess that's... speaks to what you were just saying there, Steve, about the diversity of the type of stories that Peter is producing, because this is, set in Bolivia. And probably the easiest way to look at it is, or the lens through which I look at it certainly is the Wild West, because that's certainly very much how it's set up, to the point where it's got Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid in it. And how that is written by the same guy who did, would you say, Evil Lurks in the Night, Germ? That's a very different story. And then Jungle Love, you probably couldn't get three more diverse genre writing. So for Pite to be able to control and master the Phantom character in all of those different genres is pretty impressive.
Yeah. So for a bit of Peter Anderson, and then Andrew Constant. They're probably the most two prolific Frew writers. So they're probably the main two stays
of the last 2 years.
Of the last 5 years of that, Frew.
With Frew doing their own stories, they've been the writers.
Okay.
So, and for those who are wanting to know, yes, Peter Anderson has agreed to come on the podcast, but he wanted a few stories behind him first. So,
I think we've just established he's got a few stories behind him.
We'll probably have him early in the new year by the sounds of things now.
Yeah. So, it'll be fun to talk to him. But for me, I really like the story. What I like is that Frew are getting a nice collection of artists that all have different uniqueness about them. Like for instance, it's just some we've had Cavalcanti, Boix, Paulos, Dantes, Todorado, Foley, Paul Mason, and the list goes on. They've all got their uniqueness about it, and I really enjoy that. Raphael Dantes has got he has done an interview with us. So if you want to know a little bit more about him, make sure you go to our website. His artwork I really enjoy. I like, it's fun. He's got nice big panels. There's a bit of humor in the story, like for instance with the walker upside down. Some people might find that funny, some people might not. But just like some of the different angles, like that one there of Dante's, of the different angle looking down from the top on of the restaurant downwards on page 57. That's pretty cool. And then I also like this double page here where you've got the Phantom kind of breaking the panels. For me, when I look at an artist, I look at how they break the panels, how they have more than just the substandard 9 panels on a page. I like to see how they can create different angles, different size panels, and coming out of a panel and all that. It just kind of adds a 3D element to it. And so I think he's done well here. This drawing here of the Phantom, or as Mr. Walker in a cowboy garb, is probably my favourite panel out of the whole story. I really enjoyed this story. It's fun. I also like how the bad guys are not really bad guys in this story as well. Like there's a little bit of greyness to it, and
well, the main bad guy is just genuinely bad, but then holding up in a town full of outlaws, that the Phantom actually sits down and enjoys their company, and goes, this isn't actually, these guys aren't real bad guys. They're kind of Robin Hood type characters. So it's just a nice story, and I guess like you can. And I think that's the beauty about the Phantom. You can have fun stories. You can have nice stories. You can have heavy stories like Requiem and Evil Lurks in the Night, which we mentioned before. they were hard to digest, especially from Pity. And then, of course, you had the, there's been a couple of others from Team Fantomen that have been quite heavy as well. So it's nice to kind of have a nice mixture of fun stories and heavy stories. What did you, Steve? What did you think of the art in this one? Because I think the first page or so, certainly you get a reaction of going, this isn't. Well, it's not Cy Barry, who we've just read. It's not your traditional Phantom artwork. It's a little bit more cartoony, I want to say. Certainly the first couple of pages. Then there's some quite realistic depictions. So Steve, I'd be interested to hear what you thought of the artist.
Yeah, cartoony is definitely the word that I would use with my great technical knowledge of
No, I thought we should ask
illustration.
three men with art masters.
But yeah, you, like you said before, the first page there, that's no longer Psy, unless you're looking at the house and think, oh, that's really drawn well. Then you actually look at the characters, and then you think, oh, hang on, this is a different artist. I really do like his style. With that, it's a fun style. It's also, and what Jem was saying before with the big panels, it gives the characters enough room to you really see who they are, and it's something that I think would work well in color if because it's big spaces rather than small panels. So I do like the art in it. Has he done work? It seems somewhat familiar. Has he done a few things for Frew before? I have a feeling they may have done a cover or something.
I think this is his first time, and that's part of why. The elephant in the room. He's referred to. He's credited as Rafael Lopez in this story, which is a editorial oversight, and Dudley has apologised profusely for that in some of the letters to the editor in some of the other comics we're going to see and whatever. So I think this is his first appearance in a Frew.
Yeah. It's his first appearance. He has done a free card in the trading card series.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I'm not sure if you can see behind me. He has also done a cover for me as well.
Mate, we would. It's a narrow list of artists who have not done a sketch cover for you.
The thing is, I've got the screen as a postage stamp in my top left hand corner. I can still see all the things that Jam's got there in his background. But one of the things you mentioned there, Jam, back when you were saying your bits, and it had to do with the comedy. Now, I love comedy. I love myself a bit of slapstick. I love a bit of making fun of whoever. But the comedy here, especially on pages 54 and 55, it really didn't hit the mark for me. Maybe one or the other, but not both. Mainly because, and this is the age we're living in now, we've got the fella here, I don't think he's named at all, but he's the servant character, the butler character. Who's drawn as we'll say an ethnic or a local of Bolivia, serving the posh white people who have come in. He can't hold the name right; it's all confused, and he's made to look like a buffoon later on with the luggage. So his status gets quite diminished, whereas the others are quite chin up and dressed very well, and nothing bad happens to them. Whereas I like a good slapstick where it happens to everybody.
Oh, and if anything in slapstick, if the suit is the one who gets the cream pie in the face, it's funnier, isn't it? So
that's it. So that's my one critique.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying there, and while I think the upside down Walker gag is a good one, I think the tripping over the humour in here seemed a little forced at times, is what I would say. I suppose the punchline at the end of the scene seemed a little of I've got to have a punchline at the end of this scene. What will it be? It was still good, but it just felt a little bit forced, and I guess that's just what I would say about that. So, it's interesting.
If you were to play editors, would you take out both of them, or do you leave one of them in, or?
I'd keep the sign. I think the sign would be fine.
Especially with the Reclaw gag
I don't mind the Reclaw gag. Maybe has a quick little word to himself upside down. Or I don't know. It's hard now.
The thing with the luggage that got me is it was about the third or fourth reference to how heavy this luggage is. And I was starting to think, right, this is an important plot point, but it just seems to lead
for a gag.
Yeah, it was set up for that trip over gag. So.
I think it was.
It really doesn't suit the Phantom. A fellow who's supposed to help fellas who's struggling, surely he can take his own. His wife's case.
You raise a good point there, Stephen. So what about if, for instance, it was like, because this is not the first time that Peter Anderson has made a joke at the Phantom's wife expense. At the end of Inked in Blood, there's an epilogue where he then has to go dress shopping. But what about if it was the Phantom then tried to help, and then it was him that fell over with, oof, you know, you've packed a lot, Jane. Do we really need that? So like that might have been a little bit, because then that's kind of,
because he's coming from a position of power already, and so then something happens and that's funny. Whereas someone who's already down low and gets pushed down even lower, well, it's not that funny.
Yeah.
I'm interested that you guys would say that the art had so many big panels. If I just jump back to, because I find this story quite busy. I think that some of the pages seem to have more than 9 panels. They might have one big one in the middle, but then all of a sudden,
page 59 is a good example.
Yeah. So while I do, the 50, 60, 61, which you showed before, Germ, I agree. They do have those breakout panels, but I actually, and I guess especially when I compare it to some of the stories we're going to review shortly, to be a very busy story with a lot of dialogue and quite a lot of images, which is not a criticism in any way, because I enjoy the story. The pace is still good, even though there's a lot going on. It's why I guess it's something that's worth going back and poring over again in a slower fashion later.
I think you raise a good point. A lot of Pete Anderson stories are quite heavy in a lot of like copy, and I wonder if that's a European thing, where a lot of the European style of comics is different to, say, an American thing, where
I don't know. There's a lot of Americans have a lot of dialogue.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we know that.
And that's just in real life, not in the comics.
I was actually thinking of some Batman comics. I wasn't actually having a crack at them, but
I was thinking of the former president. But anyway, I'm sure they'll. But I wonder if, because a lot of American comics are, like they can have bigger panels, bigger pages, where a lot of European, and like you're looking at your classic ones from Asterix to Tintin to Lucky Luke and stuff like that, it is more, you fit more panels on a page than, say, an American book. So I wonder if that's the style where Peter has grown up on, and that'll probably be a question to ask him when we get him on. So when you're listening to this, sir, make sure you jot this down, because that will be one of the questions we will ask you when you come on the podcast.
But every page, now that I've just had a bit more of a flick through it, no page is the same. Like, you're not going to get 9 or 12 or 8 pages, standard pages, like frames per page is a standard. It's very dynamic. It changes up on every single page, and that's what helps to give us we'll say illusion now that they're all big panels, because we've got these big ones that are splashing out at us, but then interwoven in between it are these little ones full of dialogue and what have you. So anything else, final thoughts? Should people go out and buy it, read it, go read it again?
Of course. It has to be one of the best issues. Another thing that I thought was kind of funny was on page 63. It wasn't funny, but it was a nice little nod, where you've got the Spanish word for the Phantom as well.
El Fantasma, I noticed that.
I did read that,
in Masquerado. So that's just, I'm not sure if you can see it there. But that's just a nice little nod.
Oh, no, I see what you're saying. There was at one point, one of the women calls him El Fantasma, and then you're right, then there's all those, also then the Hombre Enmascarado, which I'm sure we've both now butchered the pronunciation of. But no, those sorts of little nods are good, and you can certainly tell that Pete's a huge fan, because he does bring in those sorts of little nods and tropes and that sort of thing into his stories.
It's a nice touch, especially because it's in South America. Rafael Dantel's is from Brazil. In my opinion, it's a nice touch. It's a nice tip of the hat to them, and I like it. It's a nice way of ending it on that one.
Okay. Next issue is the Collectors Replica Series number 25 through 1878. And within these covers, we've got The Valley of No Return by Lee Falk and Wilson McCoy, The Chain by Lee Falk and Wilson McCoy, Jungle King by Lee Falk and Wilson McCoy, and Diana Aviatrix Lost Part 2 by Lee Falk and Ray Moore. I'm assuming that you have to read Replica Series number... No, you have to read Replica Series number 26, the next issue, to get Part 1 of Diana Aviatrix Lost, would you?
I think the only
the other way around.
mentioning out of this issue is The Valley of No Return, where you've got the Phantom and the White Explorers and the Knights all wearing masks, which is rather ironic and unique for 2020. I don't really think there's much more to say about this issue.
Well, they're doing wearing masks.
Yes, they're wearing masks.
Yep, and it's
in
a
COVID-19
surprise
now.
in a sense that we haven't seen a lot more Phantom memes on the internet using those panels.
Yeah. So, for instance, here's a good page. I think that's probably, it's kind of funny. I've seen a couple from this story.
Can you put it back up again? I've just made the screen bigger so I can see.
So if you go to page 24 and 20...
Steve, what were you saying, Steve?
Hey, mine's still in its wrapper. I can't open mine up. I want to see what yours...
Yeah,
if you were on page 24 and 25, Steve, there's quite a lot of
see.
Phantom in mask type imagery. So it is topical in that sense. Look, I would say that these are all classic stories. And
we got this panel here where the Phantom's wearing a mask and is shooting people. So I'm sure you can make a meme out of that, where the Phantom is telling you if you're not masked, he is going to shoot at you and steer you away back to your home to be isolated.
Look, I would say about this collector series, and straight up, I haven't read it because I was struggling to get the others read, to be honest, but they're all classic stories, and if you haven't read them before, definitely pick up this comic and read those stories, because these are the sorts of stories that I cut my teeth on. I know, Jim, you were a little bit later and got more of the Scandinavian influence, but you would have seen these before, which is why we want to skip over them, because we've all read them to death. But we are Phantom fans of 20 plus years. If you're a Phantom fan of 5 years or less, and you haven't read these before, you definitely want to read these, because these are the reason why the Phantom is who he is.
And that's the reason why these replica stories continually get published. It's not for the old crusty old fans like you and me. It's for the younger ones who have not read these stories yet. Like The Valley of No Return is a typical Lee Falk and Wilson McCoy story. It is if it is kind of like one of those stories that if you had to describe that whole era in one story, this is one of the type of stories you would bring out.
It would be.
The Chain is iconic for the Phantom lore. What's interesting is we've actually written an interesting article about that this is actually the only time that the Chain has actually been mentioned in a newspaper story. And it's such an iconic piece of Phantom lore, so to speak.
It also gives the Phantom's mother name for the only time.
No, there was a couple of other times, I think.
Or maybe not the only time, but certainly the first time.
Yeah, it might have been the first time, but one of the few times. I don't know that one off the top of my head, so I'll gloss over that fact.
Well, Barry Stubbersfield says it is in the message, so I'll trust him.
Well, I have proven Barry Stubbersfield wrong on occasion, even though he hasn't quite admitted that one yet. But that's another story. But it's because I think in the Childhood of the Phantom, he was mentioned. Her name was mentioned in one of the two versions.
And I have to absolutely agree with you, fellas. Because I hadn't opened the book, as you saw, it was still in the cover. But as soon as I saw the chain on the run sheet, I should have read that.
Mm.
Yeah.
But moving on to something new, 1879. The Dolphin Mystery, also called the Marineland Drug Menace. And when I say new, it's new for us, but Scandinavia got to read it about 30 years ago, in 1991.
And so did the UK.
Did they? Oh, they did too in the Wolf issue #1.
Yeah.
With that iconic shark cover, which we get a bit of a thing on the back cover. I've just found out there's a little bit of glue or something sitting on my cover. Get rid of that.
I really like this story. I enjoyed it when I first read it in the UK story. The cover, I think, is actually really great. A little bit interesting that it didn't get censored.
Why would it get censored?
Because it's got a girl in a bikini. There's been examples of stuff like that being censored before.
I haven't been to a pool.
I enjoy the story. It's fun. I have to ask, is there another way of testing if something's cocaine without tasting it?
No, if you watch movies.
Not in my experience.
It's done it. Yeah.
And like, I wonder, I don't know, but like you see it in the movies. The Phantom does it here as well, where he puts his finger in and tastes it. And I don't know. It just makes me wonder. Surely there's another way.
Well, there probably is now. Like, this was written in 1991, so we're talking almost 30 years ago, which is probably those same movies that you're talking about. I'm sure they've come up with something since.
The artwork's great. It works well in colour. It works well in black and white. The bad person turns out to be someone not as some people might have expected. This is the panel here where you've got the shark trying to eat the Phantom. I must admit that drawing there of the shark, that used to be one of my go-to drawing pieces when I was a kid. Was that cover of the shark rising out, and it's so iconic. Even though that does not appear in the story at all, it is such an iconic drawing drawn by my kids. I'll try and bring up the cover of the UK Wolf edition. I'm not sure if you can see that or not, but I really enjoyed this. It's a fun story. You know how we're talking about the Outlaws, where it's a fun story. It's the type of story that an 8-10-year-old will enjoy to a 80-year-old will enjoy, and everyone in between. That's how I would describe that type of story.
Yeah. Oh, look, I many times on the record as not really appreciating the Egmont and the Scandinavian stuff as much as some others, but as far as stories by Claes Remerthi go, and he's written this under the pseudonym Michael Thierres, but it was before he was owning stories under his own name, and then with the art by Felmang. This is the sort of Scandinavian story that I do really enjoy. And I hadn't read the colour version of it before. I don't have a Wolf #1, so I haven't read this story before. And I really enjoyed the way that Remerthi took the dolphins, which are some bizarre sort of characters really to have in the Phantom's world, and the Solomon and Nefertiti is part of Falk's experimental stage in the late 60s, early 70s, where he was just coming up with all sorts of things.
Experimented on, you reckon?
Maybe he was tasting cocaine, who knows? But no, I think the way that they've taken that idea and gone, well, how can we, it was almost, how can we get the dolphins into a story? And they've done it in a way that builds on the Phantom, the idea of the Phantom as being this master animal trainer, which he apparently is, and then fits it into a story that's, as we've sort of said, right from the era of the 90s about drug cartels and ways that the drugs might be smuggled, and there's an unexpected villain, as you say, and Felmang again. I sort of said this about Barry before, but Felmang in this era is many ways at the peak of his powers, and it's some really beautiful artwork that he's delivered here too.
Yeah, it really is, and and definitely a product. Like when I was reading stories of the 90s, this is the type of story that hooked you in.
Yeah.
It's good. It's fun. Phantom's good. He beats the bad guys, of course. That's an ingenious way that the bad guys have figured out to smuggle their drugs in. Well, that's a good way to bring the dolphins in. And dolphins, they really are intelligent creatures. Within days of being brought into captivity, they can train humans to stand on the edge of a tank and feed them fish. They're incredibly intelligent.
Two quick things.
Actually, I heard that 2 days ago. I thought it was pretty topical for that.
Very well done, Stephen. Two quick things. This was actually penciled by Ferry, who celebrated his birthday a couple of days ago. So a huge shout out to Ferry. He's kind of like he's one of the artists that kind of molded filming, so to speak.
Yeah.
So a lot of fans are like, filming. He's kind of like one of the artists that helped shape what we love about filming as well. And then another thing on Alan in the message from the publisher. He read that message of the publisher, and you might have a bit of a clue about what our next podcast is.
Oh yes, yes, that's right.
We'll just leave that one there, but just a little bit of a nugget.
And that's a good nugget. The last thing that I'd bring up from this issue, and this will cut into the news a little bit, I know, but it seems like a good time to bring it up, and that's the back cover, the tribute to Cesar Spadaro, the legendary Phantom artist who passed away since we've recorded our last Comics and News. A really touching tribute from Antonio Lemos in the back cover there, and I know that we know that Antonio was particularly touched by or blown away by Spadaro's death and really affected by that because they had worked so closely together. And you've only got to read that tribute to appreciate what Antonio thought. And if you go back and have a look at Spadaro's artwork and think of the stories that he's been involved in. He's one of those Phantom artists from Egmont again, who is the exposure that we've had to him. So glad that Egmont picked him up as an artist and brought his art to us because it was just so spectacular. And sad to see another classic Phantom artist pass away.
And he's one of the ones that we all grew up on in the late 80s, 90s, and early 2000s and stuff. So yeah, Valet. A huge shout out to the family, Antonio Lemus and all his other friends, David Muller, who's was one of his assistants, and also Okra as well, who's another one of his assistants, who's was a close friend to Cesar Spadaro as well. So yeah, our thoughts are with you. I like stories like this. I like comics like this. It's fun. We can have our heavier stories, which, the ones coming up next are a little bit heavier, but these are nice, fun stories to scatter in amongst the deeper, darker stories. And so, good choice in publishing that one.
Well done. So our next two issues, kind of like, might do it as a whole. We'll see how the discussion goes. But both 1880 and 1881 have two stories within them, and both stories are continued on in the next issue. So they are The Coming Storm in 1880 and The Coming Storm Part 2 in 1881. So we've got The Raven Part 1 and The Raven Part 2 in the two different issues. Both of those are written by Andrew Constant and drawn or illustrated by Ivan Rodriguez. And Andrew Constant gets another Guernsey, and he writes the second story for both issues as well, which are Phantom Crusader stories. The first one being War Wounds, and the second one being Welcome Home Part 1. How are we going to go through these ones, fellas? We're going to go through issue by issue or story by story?
Story by story, I reckon.
Story by story. It's unanimous. So if you're listening to this and you want issue by issue, well, too bad.
Tough luck.
So we're going to go with The Raven first. Now,
covers?
Oh, covers. Well, covers are done. The first one, 1880, that I really, really like that cover. The darkness, the mysteriousness, the glare that comes off the moon. It's superb. It is really, really an awesome cover. Who's the cover artist?
It's Rodriguez.
Wow,
then,
knocked it out of the park.
and then the colorist is a Nigerian by the name of, prepare for butchering of his name, I am sorry, Torello Pablo. I like the colorist. The thing that, again, I said it before with Frew, is that they're getting a nice collection of artists where I think the beauty is that they're able to, with same as artists and now even colorists and even writers, is that they're now able to match the style to an artist. So
They're getting a big enough stable that they know who to match up.
Yeah, the colorist in this did a brilliant job in getting that dark, gritty, grimy, old English feel. And then if you look at something like the back cover, where that's a total different style of colouring compared to something like that where you've got the glare. It's almost gaslight-ish. You got a big sword with a big gleam on it, or the moon, as you made mention there on the 1880. So I think it's good to see a nice variety, and this colorist has done a good job in that field. I'm looking forward to seeing what else he can do with the artist, with the colorist on that one.
Yeah. Now, I've been enjoying. Oh, sorry. Yep.
Just in terms of the stable, it's fair to say that this would be the first Nigerian who has had work published in a Frew comic and perhaps a Phantom comic. Full stop. So certainly Frew are not afraid to go around the world and just pick the people that they think are the best for the job, not people who are necessarily well established in the industry or all the rest of it. I really like that that they're looking for, and I'd be fascinated to know the backstory of how they even became aware of Torello Pablo to become a colorist, and I think he's done. And I'm with you, Steve. I think 1880 in particular is a really stunning cover, and a lot of it is because of the way it's been coloured.
Absolutely. And what I've been really enjoying from Frew over these past few years was the giant size. That was a surprise packet for me. And reading these other stories about these other characters, and the Raven was one of my favourites. And so to see him coming, and also in the what's it called? Was it Spectre? The Shane Foley. Scorpius. Sorry. Shane Foley's stories that he's been doing, where has had that teaming up element to it. So I was really keen to read this with the Fantomen and Raven doing their stuff. And I wasn't let down. I really enjoyed the story as a whole. Now, with a name like the Raven, anyone who's familiar with famous authors may know of a fellow called Edgar Allan Poe. And there's a number
Simpsons Halloween episodes is all you've got to be aware of.
Yes, Simpsons Halloween episode. That's right. So there's a few callbacks to Poe's work, being the Raven, in particular, especially right at the end where the Raven cries nevermore. But I think there was also a pun. I think it was in the second part. I think what did Phantom say? Something was poorly done, or a Poe choice of words, or something like that. So there, nice little pun there. Good on you, Andrew. Yes. I'm just wondering if people who may not be familiar with that work would have been able to get those jokes.
There's the panel there where it says, I'm not sure if you can read that. If you're on YouTube, you might be able to read that, but it's on the page of 23. It's the
Poe pet.
Yeah, it seemed a very Poe pet indeed. Sorry for interrupting.
That's all right. No, I think that it's one of those Easter eggs. I suppose if you're aware of it, then you get more out of it. If you don't, then it's not going to detract. So it's well done. And I think that I might have been a bit glib when I talked about The Simpsons there before, but I think that Simpsons episode has very much put Nevermore and the Raven into the popular consciousness. So most people,
that's where I first heard it. First
Is that, yeah, go. Yeah.
I should actually, I've got a collection of Edgar Allan Poe's work. I should have brought that down for the podcast.
Did you see that Andrew Constance has, he showed a thing on his socials the other day where he's actually got a raven tattoo on his arm.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I like it. Andrew Constance, he's a deep thinker. There's always a lot of thought in his writing. And in this, I really liked it. I thought the story was good. I thought, again, the artist matched the story. Something interesting for those who like a bit of trivia, Gary Challinor was actually down to draw this story, but for some undisclosed reasons, he had to pull out. He did do a couple of pages. That will be on our Patreon in one of the future updates as well. So if you're intrigued about that and you're a Patreon, you can do it. I just want to talk about the artist. Thing that I love about this story, again, was the panels. It was very big panels. It was bigger than what we actually talked about before. And it's almost like why it got stretched upon 2 issues was because the panels were so big. And I love, this page here with the rain. This one here where you're looking up at the
give us some page numbers there, Joe. You guys are just saying here
on page 5 where you're looking up the Raven's crutch and the Phantom crutch.
Actually, I've got it open to that page right now.
And then page 5 where you're looking down at at the captain and the rain that just is so prevalent, and it's really good. It gives a real dreariness of what England is like in the winter, although I've never been there, but I can only imagine. So I thought the art was really good. If I was to describe his style, I would describe it as 2000s Hans Lindell style. If I had to that's how I would describe his style, is the way he draws the Phantom. There is a lot of Hans Lindell. He's not overly too muscular, but he's a very stocky Phantom. Like if you look at this panel here, this is part 2. He is a very stocky Phantom.
I really like that opening to part 2, where it's got the Phantom and Raven walking towards camera. They're looking very strong. They've drawn very, very well. I really like that shot.
Yeah, and I love the use of the big one pages.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump in there because I absolutely agree the big splash pages were sensational. And I think that we got, for me, I almost got a jaw drop moment back in my chair going, oh my God, when in part 1, issue 1880, on page 7, we got treated to this splash page of Raven's Court. Now,
yes.
We are aware because of the podcast that we've had before with Andrew Constant and Paul Mason when they joked about Andrew writing "There's 1,000 warriors" and Paul suddenly had to draw that. I don't think Andrew Constant would have said, and I want, well, maybe he did, I want a long shot or a full castle shot, but the detail of this picture, the brickwork in this entire castle, I can't even imagine how many days that would have taken to draw that one image. It's absolutely phenomenal.
My hand aches just thinking about it.
Oh, it's and there's other examples too. And
was the way he introduced the heroes in the first part. So on page 11, the first time you see the Raven is a full page.
Yes.
And, the first time you really see the Phantom is a full page.
Yeah. And if I go into part 2 now, so this is in issue 1881, page 16. So we've got a fight scene there between the Raven and Captain Crow. That's fantastic. It's a good fight scene. What I'm picking up is the detail in the treasure trove that is in the foreground there. There's no need to put that in. He didn't have to do that,
isn't it?
And that's a lot of work, all of those coins and the skull and all the rest of it, which is, in a sense, completely unnecessary, but it just adds so much to the story. to see that that's what they're fighting over, you know. So yeah, I'm in awe of Rodriguez for the way that the attention to detail and the extra work and the extra effort he's put into this. And part of it, and now I'm going to move to the writing, I suppose, is that Andrew Constant has left so much room for the artist to provide that detail, because completely the opposite, I guess, of what we were saying about Outlaws, is that the dialogue and the writing is kept, well, not the writing, the dialogue is kept to an absolute minimum. You know, there might be 30 words on a double page spread, but the artwork tells so much. And obviously that artwork is all at the direction of the writer, but Andrew Constant has really left a lot of space for the artist to join in the storytelling.
Yeah. I said before, I wonder if this was originally a single story, and then as they started doing the thumbnails and the planning and all that, they thought, hang on, let's go double issue and bring out these one-page splash pages. And if that was the case, kudos to the editors and Frew, and then also the artists and writers for allowing that to happen, because it's a great outcome. Yeah.
And when we're talking about the earlier issue, the Outlaws, when there's a lot of dialogue on the page, I was thinking, make sure I say something about the Andrew one, because something I noticed, especially in this, where it's not, as Dan just said, but also if you think to his Kid Phantom work, and remember the story was before they got to England, and they're fixing up the gang, and you just see the panels where, you know, they're moving their head left, right, up, down, that sort of stuff, and it's just telling the story with the pictures rather than having to talk all the time. So where Pete might be heavy-handed with the dialogue, Andrew really dials it back. And I'm not saying that one style's better than the other, but you can see the author's different styles in it. And
we know that Andrew Constant's done a lot of work for American comic books too, and as we've said before, you know, that's a different style. So
I've got a standing order for his Nightwing that's coming out next year.
Right. I think we as Frew readers are lucky enough to be in that perfect situation where we get really good quality examples of both styles rather than being locked into one.
Yeah,
if you're a comic fan, you've got to be getting you can't go. I know we're biased because we're Phantom fan, but you can't go past what Frew's been publishing these last couple of years. If you want a variety of different styles and you want to be introduced to these artists that you might not see anywhere else, pick up a Phantom comic from the last 2, 3, 5 years. Don't be put off if it's not in color or if it is in color. Check it out. Check out the writing. Check out the artistry that's been happening, because it is absolutely phenomenal. Those splash pages just give exclamation points exactly where they need to be done in that story. It's just it's how you write a comic and it's how you produce a comic.
Yeah, and I like where we are at the moment with Frew, where you've got the mixture of everything. You've got the classics. I could argue that the classics could be better. But you've got the classics, you've got the Egmont new, you've got Frew new, and then you've also got Egmont or Team Fantomen old as well. So it's a great mixture at the moment. And it's a bit of everything for everyone. And in one of the issues, Dudley actually mentions that, I think it was 1881, where he talks about meeting I can't remember exactly, it's not very good podcast me trying to read it, but basically he's talking about that, where they want to be able to have that mixture to be able to please the classic reader who's in their 50s and 60s to the middle people, which is probably us who like a bit of everything, and then you've got your newer readers who are going to be a little bit more enthusiastic towards the more modern style. So I think it's a definite strategy by Frew, and I think at the moment in the 5 issues that we've just reviewed, I think they've done a very good job at that as a collective.
So, and obviously there's another story we've got to talk about here before we wrap up the whole thing. But what are your thoughts? And I feel like we're right in the middle ground of this story, the Raven story, because it's in a style written and drawn in a style that will really I think will really appeal to younger, more modern readers. It's about a character that from Australian comics history, the Raven, who was in and out of style before we started reading. So in a sense, it's a character from before our time, and it's in a style ahead of our time. So, and we like it. But what are your thoughts generally, I guess, about Frew putting the Raven into a story like this? I mean, we've seen them play with the idea a little bit. We talked about Scorpius and what's been going on in Giant Size, but this is the first time that one of those other characters from comics history, Australian comics history, has suddenly had a rebirth in a Frew in a Phantom story. So where are we at on that one?
Well, as soon as I saw that it was the Raven, I was happy because he's been my favourite character out of that new bunch, the Giant Size. Like Sir Falcon's been good, and Phantom Ranger, that's been all right. But every time, I really look forward to reading the Raven stories.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think overall it's good. Would I like to see it all the time? No, but
no. Don't want it all
would
the
it
time.
be better if it was in a Giant Size? Well,
Not
I think
necessarily.
sometimes, but I don't think it's a problem in here, especially if there's too many stories to fit in a Giant Size. Why not stick it in here? It's 2 issues. It's enjoyable. It could be used as a good avenue for people to pick up the Giant Size comic. Nice little cross-platform doorway, gateway, whatever you want to call it. So I think that's good. Maybe they should have promoted the Giant Size a little bit more, a little bit better in these issues. It's like, hey, you like the Raven, make sure you get these.
Read the original.
Yeah. So maybe that could have been it. Maybe we could have had a article on the Raven from Kevin Patrick in part 1 or part 2 with
you could even reprint one from one of the Giant Sizes, which I'm sure has been published, and no one who's going to notice, and those who do are going to understand why. So, for mine, I think this does stand up as being worthy, appropriate, I suppose, in the regular Phantom stories because of the way. And it takes a little while to work it out, but the Phantom has been tracking Captain Crow and his bunch of pirates, which has led him to the Raven. And that explains why the Raven and the Phantom are teaming up. And the Phantom's done his research ahead of time. Oh, who's Captain Crow's family? Where's his brother? Where's he headed? Oh, now I get it. Now I understand the Raven. So that makes sense. And I think Constant's written this really, really well to bring that in. So I think this does stand up as appropriate in the Phantom, the main comic series masthead, as opposed to I think Scorpius. If Scorpius had been in the main Phantom stories, then it may not have stood up to that sort of scrutiny. Whereas introducing it through Giant Size was appropriate there. So
yeah. Now, fellas, you guys, did you ever watch Game of Thrones?
Of course.
Yeah. Well, do you reckon that as soon as I saw Captain Crow, I thought that's a bit of a nod to Game of Thrones with the big black. Well, I think it might be feathers here, but kind of looks like a big black coat, like someone from the Night's Watch, who were often referred to as crows in Game of Thrones. So as soon as I saw Captain Crow wearing that big, warm cloak, I thought, is that a Game of Thrones Easter egg there?
Well, very well done.
Yeah, good point. It could well be.
Yeah. Especially if it's got, Captain Crow. Bingo. I reckon that's what it is. What about the Phantom Crusader? He's sharing the issue with the Phantom and Raven. A couple of news stories, again, by Andrew Constant, this time with art by Jason Paulos. So for those of you who don't know, the Phantom Crusader, it's Chris. I better read it before I stuff up the name. Christophe Dierent, is that correct?
Yeah.
And he's come back from the Crusades, so he's a bit tired and fighting a war that he makes some mention of it. That I don't know if he says it was unjust or uncalled for. He mentioned.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
And then he's come back home, and things aren't all rosy back home. What do we think of this story, Dan?
I like the Phantom Crusader as a story unto itself. However, I don't think it's the Phantom. So in that sense, yeah, it's not my favourite. I appreciate the story for what it is, but it's not a Phantom story. So the Phantom Crusader is an idea that is loosely based on what if the Phantom was in the Crusades and in the Middle Ages. For mine, he wasn't, and so for me, these are not Phantom stories.
Just slightly correct that. It's actually based off a Team Fantomen story where Minerva Groves, who was the archaeologist at Morristown, she actually finds records where the skull ring was actually being used by him, and it's the same skull ring, and they're all kind of related. And so instead of the generation starting in 1936, it comes more towards the Middle Ages and stuff like that. I'm the same. I'm not a huge fan. I didn't like those stories, whether you want to call them what-if stories or not. You had the Egyptian one. You had the Crusaders one. The Crusaders one was probably better than the Egyptian one. I didn't like the stories. I find it interesting that they're publishing these. I would rather Gaslight compared to this, purely because Gaslight's still kind of fits, and I'm still comfortable with it being in the Phantom universe, where the Phantom Crusader, I'm very much like you, Dan, where it's more what if. What I wonder is whether Frew have to get permission from King Features for these stories. Whether
I can't really see that they would, because again, it's and I say this in the full knowledge that I really like Jason's artwork. And it's certainly no criticism. We published a Phantom Crusader picture as part of our bushfire book, so there's certainly links to the Phantom with the skull motif and the belt, and I think he wears it on his shoulders. But other than that, like the only way that this Phantom Crusader guy wears a mask is to put the helmet on, but you can still see his eyes through it. There's very few elements of Phantom lore in the Phantom Crusader, and if Superman, if there was a version of Superman that didn't get affected by kryptonite and also wore a green and purple tights and didn't have a cape and was known as, didn't have the S, he had a P on his shirt, then that's not Superman, so this isn't the Phantom. That was a really terribly drawn out analogy, but you know what I'm saying.
We got there in the end,
though. Something ironic when you did the P on the chest.
Yeah, of course. So that was the first letter I thought of.
No, just something a little bit funny about that is there's actually a couple of Indonesian comics where they draw the Phantom with a P on his chest.
Well, there's nothing funny about having a P on your chest.
Yeah. So I just thought that's kind of funny. Stephen, so what do you think? Is it a yay or a nay for you?
Well, look, forgetting that if it wasn't in or if you forget about the Phantom, if you can, in a Phantom podcast, and you just saw it as a standalone story, would it be a good story?
Yes.
Right. And that's the way I look at it. I think it's a good story. I like the writing. Once again, I like the art. It's a kind of like I was under the impression that this fellow was some sort of further back relation of the Walkers.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so they're trying to tie it in that way. And look, I can take it. I don't mind these as fillers. I wouldn't want, probably not a full issue, but the 8 pages at the end of stories, I didn't mind. And it's an own little universe rather than trying to tie it in too much with Phantom lore. it's his own character. Phantom Crusader is his own character. He's not the Phantom, but he does have some loose ties to the Phantom.
Yeah. What's actually interesting on part 1 in 1881, you see the guy starting to take off his helmet. That helmet that he is wearing is very, very similar as the Egyptian style.
Okay, so we're going to have to... I thought there might be something there with that helmet, but I wasn't sure what it was.
Yeah, so I can't remember the issues at the top of my head. Pretty poor of me, I know.
Incredible. I don't know why we keep you around.
Yeah, it's my birthday, mate. Yeah, so that, and I'm not sure if it does, but when I see that, and then I'm thinking of the Egyptian style Phantom, there's a lot of similarities there. So I'm not sure if they are related at all, but yeah, it's
time will tell.
Yeah, time will tell. We only have to wait another month. I think the next part comes out early January. I think it's a good point you make, Stephen. As a standalone story, it's enjoyable. Is it our Phantom? Well, to a lot of people, probably not. To some people, maybe. And then others are probably just going to enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah. Okay. So award season's been happening in the comics world. I saw on Facebook, and I made sure I congratulated this fellow, but well done to Dr. Paul Mason on, was it a Bronze Ledger Award, if I remember correctly? I'm not sure on the other one. I'm guessing it's Glenn Lumsden, of course, but I'm not sure on this award. Can someone tell me a bit more about this?
So the last couple of weeks we've seen the comic book awards going around for the year that was 2020. The Stanley Award for comic book artist was won by Glenn Lumsden, and Paul Mason was actually nominated for that as well. But the Stanley went to Glenn Lumsden, particularly for his work on Death Dive, which appeared in Phantom Giant Size. And then today, we found out that Paul Mason had won a Bronze Ledger Award but particularly for his work on It Tolls for Thee, the Phantom Vietnam story from the war themed annual. So I just think it's a fantastic, and I guess it speaks to the Frew commissioning Australian artists, that now two of the artists who have worked on stories that are Frew commissioned and published in 2020 have now won public recognition from their peers for those stories. And I just think that's a wonderful tribute to both the Glenn and to Paul, but also to Frew for the work that they're doing in commissioning Australian artists.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now let's get another part of this found in Vietnam now.
Yeah.
Yes. Here.
I think what was good is we talked before about getting artists and creators from around the world. While that's true, Frew have also, which was a criticism of Frew for probably 15 years, 20 years before that, was that they are actually getting Australian artists, established artists like Paul Mason, Glenn Lumsden, and Gary Challoner.
And Jason Palos we've talked about.
Palos and stuff like that. But then they're getting the young guns like Jamie Johnson, Dale McCanty, Jamie McPherson, Grange Wallace, Picky, and, Carmen D. Pentrio, some of these up-and-coming young artists as well. So they're while they are getting far and wide for creators, they're also looking in their backyard.
Yes.
And if you see some of the comments from some of the other creators, comic creators from around Australia, they are enjoying what Frew are doing because they are looking after the local talent as well. So it's good to see. It's another tick in Frew's corner or box or whatever you want to. However it goes.
Very good. And so we got the award seasons that's happening out there in the wider world. But annually, the Chronicle Chamber, we hold our best of survey. with categories such as best cover, best story, best art, all those sort of usual things. So that will be coming out very soon, the Best of 2020 survey. 2020 is not a year that most of us want to look back on too closely, but in the world of Phantom comic books, I think there have been plenty of highlights. So watch out for the Best of 2020 survey coming out soon.
I'll be very interested to see where Jermaine ends up rating 1877, because he's already in this podcast said that the Outlaws and the Lucy Carey story make it one of his issues of the year. Germ, do you see yourself actually voting for it in your top 3, do you think? And a question without notice, and you don't have the full list in front of you, which obviously our readers or listeners and viewers will have by the time that... and just to be clear, the Best of 2020 survey will be published and made available for people almost immediately as soon as we know what the cover for the Christmas album, the last Christmas issue, the last issue for the year is. So keep an eye out for that. But do you think Outlaws is going to be in your best issues, Germ?
I reckon it will probably be in my top 3, maybe top 5 best issues of the year.
So you've already knocked it down. 15 minutes ago, you were crying about it, saying it was the issue of the year. Now you brought it down to 5.
I'm being conservative. I said it was one of my favourites. Just remember that there were some issues that were released back in January and February.
January and February were last decade, mate. They don't count as being 2020.
and
there was a very good bushfire support book back then.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Can we vote for our own book as the best issue?
Maybe we can't, but our listeners can.
But so that will be out. The Christmas issue comes out on the 17th of December. Probably the cover will probably be out, probably a week before then. So Dan's got some work to do.
Yeah, so look at the socials for that week before Christmas, and you'll see the survey link come out.
Yes, and we'll give it a good old plug. And there will be a competition, whether it's a free crew badge like the last couple of years, or if that doesn't work, you might have to get one of these.
Oh, what's that you're holding up to the camera for those people who are listening there, Jim?
Well, if you're listening, you should be watching us also on YouTube. And if you listen to us a little bit longer, we'll explain that a little bit more, but that's just a little hint. I'm really excited about the next month with Chronicle Chamber. So I've dropped so many hints already that I'm sure my colleagues just go, not now.
He's dropping too many nuggets. We've got all this wonderful stuff prepared for you that we've already done. It's already in the can. Just got to wait to release it to you.
Yes. But we'll move on, eh? So
that's sitting on a gold mine.
That's all of the Frew issues. So what we're going to do is we got some special reviews from some friends. We got Ankit Mitra, who's going to be doing Regal Publishers issues 3 and 4. And then we've also got Mikkel, which is going to be Fantomen 21, 20, issue 21, issue 22, 23, issue 24, and issue 25, 26.
Hello, and welcome to another Chronicle Chamber book review. I'm Ankit, and today I'll be reviewing the Regal Comics Phantom issues 3 and 4. Firstly, if you want to know more about Regal Comics and their new venture of publishing Phantom in English in India in full color, you can check out my review for issues 1 and 2, which is there on the website for Chronicle Chamber, as well as a YouTube video sometime back, about a couple of months or so. Anyway, first of all, let's get out with issues 3 and 4. First of all, I would just like to say that I am very, very happy with these 2 new issues. And the reason is that the quality just feels like 2-3 steps up from what it was in issues 1 and 2. So yeah, the new thing about these 2 issues, if you buy directly from Regal, that is, you get supplements. Basically, a card and a bookmark from each issue. Now, these cards and bookmarks basically have the same art as issues 1 and 2, which is by Mr. Vincent Moses Raja. And they are printed on very nice gloss high card style paper, hard. Anyway, coming back to the issues, firstly we'll come with issue 3. Now issue 3 has stories, the Iron Python and the Prince Rex Conspiracy, both stories written by Tony DePaul, and they are illustrated by Graham Nolan. Graham Nolan, as I have spoken about in the previous issues 1 and 2, it was an erstwhile and a legend of Batman comics, co-creator of Bane, and the cover here is done by Indian artist Abhilash Chako. Now his art is basically from the story itself. So like for example, the components of this art, this cover art, like this zombie man here, is basically from this panel itself, as well as the train is a mirror image from the train here, and the phantom here is basically from this panel here itself. So yeah, so it makes context with the story and basically gives you a fair overview of what it is. So yeah, great. Unlike the previous issues 2 covers, which had nothing to do with the story or anything like that, I think something like this is much more relevant, and it's a great job. Next thing I would like to point out mainly is that Regal have really stepped up their quality with this. The print is absolutely great, and it's really the color separation is good, and it completely does justice to what the Sundays were when they were released. The colors are absolutely like what it was. And most importantly, it's the paper quality. I will say the paper quality is even better, if that is even possible. So they've really amped up the quality over here. That's what I have to say. Just to give you an example, I have the Graham Nolan Sundays volume 2 by Moonstone. Now these are very expensive books in comparison, and it has this story as called the Ghost Train. It is basically the same story, the Iron Python, is just named differently. And if you see it, it's on panels here. You can see that the quality is pretty much the same. And over here they have definitely worked on it, because it's a much more expensive book and compilation, and they've kept it really well. So for Regal, for like 120 rupees, which is hardly like maybe just $1 or a couple of them, it's just really good. I'm really stoked about this. This is some great stuff. So yeah, that's issue 3, and I really want to talk about this one, issue 4. This is by far my favorite Phantom in English magazine format publication, and I have read a lot of Frew as well as some Fantomen that I have collected over time, and this is really the epitome of it. Now this book has stories by Tony DePaul, and has this and Plutonium Pirates and Jungle Lesson are the 2 Sundays that have been reprinted here, and the artwork here is by Paul Ryan. Now I got to know about Paul Ryan from his work on Gotham Knights, Batman spin-off kind of publication of the mid 2000s, and his work over here is especially excellent with the colors that King Features did. And the colors here are much more modern. They are digital, sure, but they are so well done, and it's been reprinted, and the integrity is fantastic. Like for example, I can tell you, like, these are shots in the night time. There is a certain muted quality to it, and when it's day it has that brightness. So there is a fantastic way of illumination, and even in a page like, say, a panel like this, yeah, like here, the jungle scene over here, if you see it, the way the color separation is done on each of them, the gradients, how it all phases in with each other, it's just brilliant. The print quality, I have to say, and over here, this is another one. Look how the flames give a certain kind of illumination, and all of that is captured perfectly in this book, and I'm just stoked with it. Another thing I must point out is the cover art for this book. This is one of my favorite covers of any Phantom released in India, any book of Phantom released in India, and it's an original cover by Mr. Luca Erbetta. Now I know he's done Phantom work for other publications and mainly Frew, and he's been featured on a podcast with Chronicle Chamber. You can go check that out on a YouTube video some time back, and this is exactly what I've been talking about. What should be like the standard for any cover. And just to illustrate the fact, I have this Fruit Trade Paperback issue 2, which is again this cover is by Mr. Freddie Williams the third, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and this is also digitally colored, and it has that certain gradient. This is what I was talking about in my last time when I was talking about how the first two issues cover are one to my liking. The way the sunlight and all of it, the illumination, the colors, the back, and this is a morning scene in a Sunday, and he still managed to keep the grit and everything alive. It's a great cover, and I really love this cover work. Another thing I would like to point out is which I found a little strange is Devil here is white. Now I don't know why, because Devil has always been colored black, but for some reason he chose to go with this color, and that's his unique way, I guess. So yeah, great issue. And they have actually from the previous issues, if I compare, if I'm not sure if I'm right, but the paper stock is definitely a little bit better for sure, if it could be possible, because the paper stock was pretty good in the first couple of issues. And the paper does the paper is very important also to bring the colors out. Like for example, I have a Frew 80th anniversary, and they have colors here. Now the colors get very muted also based on the kind of paper you're using. Now this paper is much thinner, standard magazine, almost newsprint like, whereas this paper is much thicker, which gives you that vibrancy and makes the colors really pop. So yeah, issues 3 and 4. But I have a little bit of a thing to say about the situation here. Now Regal Comics has been not getting the kind of distribution and sales because of it, because of the lockdown and the COVID situation. The Indian reading habit is still based on newsstands and local bookstores, or not really bookstores, more like the local roadside book and magazine stalls, but those are mainly closed. And with the pandemic and all, the whole distribution system for them is kind of haywire, and they are completely dependent on direct orders. And irrespective how it feels, we are still not that social media or net savvy as such to be aware. So there may be many fans in many remote places who have no idea about Regal and these things coming out, who would probably love to get into it, and it's just been a little difficult for them. The good thing is Frew has been supposedly reached an agreement with Regal to distribute some of their books, and I really wish that happens, and it should happen, I guess. And so the foreign fans can really get this, and issue 3 and 4, yeah, they should definitely look out for this. This is some great stuff. And Regal have started, as far as I know, or are maybe going to start some Amazon sales via Amazon.in. So any fans from India who want to get their comics from Amazon can probably order it directly from Regal via them. And I would really hate for Regal to shut this venture down prematurely. It's just unfortunate that it had to come out in the year 2020, and we all know how it is. So yeah guys, great issues, go pick them up, and happy Phantoming.
Fantomen Legend is this year's softcover book.
it's to celebrate the comic book in Sweden for 70 years, and Finland had its own, but they're celebrating 80 years of the comic book strip. So same content, but they're celebrating different things, and I mean it feels more made for Sweden, since it's this cover that is a remake of the first issue. I only have the facsimile here, and it's actually been redone earlier by Salveluto in 2011. So who did it best? I would probably go with the new one. That is Luca Arbata made that cover, and I must say the quality of these strips, they actually, like, the selling point was they have rescanned all the stories with better qualities, and I must say the strips actually looks really nice, in my opinion. And I love that, and I also love that the glue is working, so not all the pages are falling out like last year's softcover book. It contains 5 stories and some great articles written by Andreas Eriksson, and it's all in black and white. First off, it's Repfolket, or The Rope People, by Lee Falk and Wilson McCoy. Here's an article by Andreas. This might be my favorite McCoy story. It's smart and fun, and it's the current Phantom, and he has to redo the great deeds that his grandfather did to prove that he's the same man, the Phantom. And it's funny and smart, and yeah, I like it. Second story is Devil's Hämnd in Swedish. It's called Tale of Devil by Lee Falk and Wilson McCoy. It's also a good story, and it's almost 2 stories in one. First, it's about this ruthless prince that forces animals to fight for his amusement. But then it goes over to a redemption story where the evil man changes his way because of his encounter with the Phantom. So he goes from being this very bad person to get his act together. Then we're done with the McCoy era, and we go into the Cyberry with The Epidemic, Oxgudens Mysterium. The introduction of Lumanda Luaga is an early Cyberry daily. I really enjoy these early Barry stories because, I mean, they're great with the everything, basically, like the storytelling and the art, and this is a great story to go to the next story, that is The Mysterious Ambassador, or Krig I Djungeln. That is when I mentioned this story in the Chronicle Chamber article written last year about the presidency in Bengala. And this is a very important story when we're getting a president for the first time. The country is getting independent. It's a must-read for anyone who hasn't already. And lastly, there is a newly produced story for the first time in these softcover books, as I can recollect. And it's the first ever published story written by Jakob Habbink, and the art is done by Janus Orden, and it's a short story, basically only 5 pages long, and it's part of the Phantom World side stories that were going in the comic book earlier. And it's about Kit in the Himalayas, and spoiler alert, skip 10 seconds to miss it. So it features this snow leopard that Kit feeds to get passed regularly, and I hope that this leopard might grow fond of him, and in the future maybe that would be his kind of animal companion. That would be nice. All in all, great book. My only complaint is that I enjoy to read the Phantom in color, and this is of course in black and white. But that is everyone. It seems like a big divider in the Phantom community. Next up is the Christmas album, covered by Henrik Sahlström. If you listened to my review last year of the Christmas album, you may remember that I ranted a lot. Let's see, I have it here. Because it had this part 1 and 2 of this... don't remember what they were calling, but you know, the Temple of the Gods. And I was ranting, but at least someone listened or had a change of heart, because there's no more 2 parts of a 6-part arc, and I like this much better. Start off with a story called The Crime Apprentices by Tony DePaul and Paul Ryan, and it's a nice story about an old convict that wants the Phantom to save his kids from making the same mistakes as he did. But I mean, I like that it's a bit more modern than the usual stories. But who knew that? Let's see if I can find it here. That the Phantom could hack someone else's computer. I did not believe that would happen before this. And then there's this next story called, let's take all the Phantom's World stories afterwards. The Lost Catacombs. And this is the story about some people getting caught with a suitcase full of human bones outside of the presidential palace. Why do they have them, and for what purpose? Yeah, I won't spoil it, but an enjoyable story. And then there's 3 of these Phantom's World stories. All of them have been published in the comic book earlier. But all is written by Allan Sonne. It's Drakens Skatt with art by Veg Blidlöv, and it's Stolen Lust, Stolen Cargo by Kim V. Anderson, and Primitive Life, and that's also art by Allan Sonne. Yeah, as I said, all good but previously published. So not like last year, where the good part actually was to get unpublished mini story. But yeah, and then we go to the facsimile. This time it's the Christmas album of 1970. I love that we're getting this, by the way, and now we're actually getting full colored. Earlier albums before 1970s was, as you might remember, only this black and red. So this is a step up in my opinion. But how do the stories add up? Let's start with the cover. It's by Rolf Go. Yeah, it's a cover. It's okay. So it's 2 Fratellas Spada stories that are sewn together a bit, but it's quite easy to see where one ends and the other one starts. It starts with Venus of the Jungle, Den sköna häxan, by unknown Fratella Spada creator and Angelo Todaro. The Phantom returns to the jungle after a month in Europe, and all of the jungle inhabitants have been possessed by a beautiful witch that are residing in the jungle. It's an okay story. I really enjoyed one part where the Phantom hurts his foot and cannot return to the Skull Cave or seek refuge in any of the villages, because, I mean, all the jungle residents are under the witch's spell and are after him. So I would love it if they would have made that the main part of the story and fleshed it out, but now it was just over very quickly. And the second part, like it ends... let's see. Yeah, I mean, it ends with them talking, and then next, this is basically how they soon connected it to the last story, saying at the same time somewhere else this happens. Von Berger's last Sista Safari, A Strange Hunter, also by unknown Frutella Spada creator and Lamberto Lombardi. This is a story of an old hunter that seems to have been hunting most of his life and it's a bit tired of it. But when he meets the Phantom, he gets obsessed by hunting and killing the Phantom. Meets in here, yeah. And I enjoyed the part again, like the first story. I enjoyed the part where the Phantom is hunted, and that would be like really good to have that a lot, but that's quite short. The build-up is very long, but yeah, maybe I am just more action-oriented than when this was created. We have some fresh Fantomen comic books. So from 21 to the last issue of 2020. Starting with number 21. It has a cover by Luca Arbata. And it's one of these redone covers. Past issue. This is how it looked in 2004. It features the same story, Death of a Phantom by David Bishop and Cesar Spadaro. I love the Pirate Queen stories. It's a bit confusing to me why they choose this and not one of the other one, because this feels like it's about middle in the saga. But yeah, as far as reprints go, I enjoy this. And as we will learn later, is that the sequel to this story will be reprinted in issue 1 of 2021. Then we have issue 22-23. It has a cover by Henrik Sahlström. It's a really nice one, in my opinion. The main story is called Den falske Jean Lafitte, and it's, the false Jean Lafitte. It's by Claes Remerti and Anthony Spey. It has beautiful art. I love Spey's work, as I've said earlier. And pirate stories is also something I really enjoy. And in this story, someone is pretending to be Jean Lafitte, and the 13th Phantom and his wife, Lafitte's sister, is on a quest to stop the new pirate. And it's nice actions. I liked it. Then we have this Necrosrånaren, The Strange Robber, by Claes Remerti, George Olson and Keith Williams. It's a pretty good daily for that time period. I have some personal attachment to it, since I got one of the original strips from it when I met George Olson many years ago. Let me check. I found it. It's there. Wonderful. So maybe that's why I like it a bit more. Then there is a side story that I don't usually bring up. I haven't read it either, to be honest. Then we have the Crusaders Treasure by Tony DePaul and George Olson and Keith Williams. Yeah, I don't know about this. It starts off good. Weapons hidden away in the jungle and expedition, but somewhere along the way it just feels very long and repetitive, and not enough happens, in my opinion. That brings us to number 24. I love this stunning cover by Luca Arbata. It might be his best. It's so light and nice. Yeah, I really enjoy this. The main story, Stulna ringar, Stolen Rings, by Claes Remerti, Daniel Müller and Anthony Spey. And here we have this text about how it was supposed to be Cesar Spadaro, but this story was supposed to be done by him, but yeah, sadly he passed away, and then there was these other two artists who finished it, and I guess it's not the best circumstances to create a overall good art to split it up and have a short deadline, and I think it shows a bit. I mean, it has really good art at some places, but some places it feels a bit rushed, and the two artists is not. I mean, you can see which pages are which artist, I would say. The story is about Phantom losing his rings to bad guys that take advantage of the power behind them. Not that uncommon trope, but I think this has made it a bit more than the regular stories that have this. It feels like a gangster story and then a second story on top of that, and yeah, the story is quite good. Then there's another story in this one, and it's this Errand of Mercy, made by Jeff Weigel. Another Australian story. It happens more and more often, and I like this. Too bad it isn't colored, but it's quite nice story. That brings us to the last issue of the year, 25-26. The cover is made by Henrik Sahlström, and it's really nice also. The main story is Ön, the island, by Klas Remerti and Kari Leppinen. On the cover it says it's by Anthony Spey, but that is a typo. It is clearly by Kari Leppinen. The Phantom tries to take down a ship of smugglers, but gets blinded by a flare. Here he gets blinded. And both the Roughnecks and the Phantom get stranded on this island. And yeah, I really like this story. It's fun that the Phantom gets blinded and not hit in the back of the head for once. And then it's more of a survival story and who hunts who on this island. And it's also a tiger wild on the island. Second part, the comic book is a really long newspaper story. Heloise återvänder hem. Heloise Comes Home by Tony DePaul and Mike Manley. As I said, really long, but it felt action-filled and good. Starts off with Heloise and Kadia fleeing the US during the aftermath of Heloise defeating the Nomad. The second part of the story is the 21st Phantom trying to free Imara Sahara, the Nomad's wife. A few things of notice happens in this story. We can see some real-life persons, like... let's see here if I can find them. Okay, I found it. It's this, I think it's the Prime Minister of Canada, I heard on Facebook, and it's this tweet from Donald Trump. And I would say, like, me and my son, or at least my son, laughed out loud when he read the tweet, and I thought it was quite funny as well. But I think it's a bit of a risk move to include this, because right now it's quite fun, but I mean, I hope the Phantom to get published at least 50 or 70 or 100 years more, and having contemporary real life person in a strip, I feel it gonna feel very dated when they make a reprint of it like a decade in the future. But maybe I'm worried about things that I shouldn't. Another thing to note is that the Phantom, he's forced to kill quite a few bad guys, and I mean, this rarely happens. I think it's okay if he's killing because he has no other options than to die himself, but I feel it's noteworthy that doesn't happen that often. And last thing is, wow, it's a good thing that Loage is president again in Fantomen, otherwise it would be a strange edit. Either explain how a doctor can get all those resources to get these terrorist suspect out of the US, or like getting Sandal Singh to do it. How would that conversation gone between Sandal and Heloise? I think it's really It's good that he did took back Luaga to the Fantomen presidency. And then there's a third story in this great comic. I mean, this story is so many pages. And the last story is Ingen vila för Mr. Walker. No rest for Mr. Walker. It's written by Jakob Habinch, Norberto Fernandez, and Coral Martinez makes the art. And I guess this is Jakob Habinix, or how he pronounces it, second published story. Like the first one was in the Christmas album. And I really enjoyed this last story. It was quite funny, short. I don't want to spoil it. It's only a few pages, so I don't want to say what happens really. And all in all, I really enjoyed these last issues a lot compared to the beginning of the year when I was more negative and complained a lot about almost every issue. It feels like the more modern reprints and stories, the happier I got. So maybe that's a divided question. Maybe a lot of fans really liked the beginning of the year compared to me. And like this last issue, I mean, even this had newly produced stories, even if it wasn't a double issue. So that was really nice. Let's see. It's going to be interesting to see which is going to be the best story of this year, with so many different kinds of stories and from different decades. As a last note, before I turn over to the Chronicle Chamber guys, the comic book about Donald Duck in Sweden, it's the only older ongoing comic book in Sweden, has changed next year, so only every other issue is going to be in stores, and the rest is gonna come only to subscribers. And from my understanding, this is to save cost, since most of the cost comes from sending to stores and taking care of the returns, and subscription are where they really earn the money. But why am I talking about Donald Duck in a Phantom podcast? Well, this might be the future for Fantomen if it goes well for Kalle Anka or Donald Duck, because they're owned by the same company, and if they see this goes well, they might think to do the same with Fantomen. And I mean, the pros would be they would save cost, making better content, and a problem I have talked about earlier is that some issues aren't that great to be introduction as a first issue to start with. Then those issues could only go to subscribers, and they could maybe change back from having these double issues to only have single issues, and every other issue would go to stores and every other issue would only go to subscribers. I think it might be the future, and it might not be bad. It might actually be good. So interesting to see what's happening in the future. That's all for me though. So happy Christmas and happy Phantoming. Over to you guys.
Rightio, thank you, gentlemen, for your brilliant reviews. I think maybe you could probably teach us a thing or two about reviews, because they're a lot shorter than ours.
Jeez, what happens?
Can I say, I'm just so stoked that we're getting reviews from around the world. We've had Mikkel for a while doing Scandinavia, but to be hearing from other parts of the world, we've been asking and calling and pleading in many ways for that on the podcast, and to be suddenly hearing from all corners of the globe, really excited, and I hope long may it continue.
Yeah,
Truly an international podcast for an international hero.
Exactly. We're a bunch of Aussies, but we are international. We report on everything around the world. We love stuff, some different levels of love, but we love stuff from around the world. We love the Phantom. We want everyone, whether English is your main language or whether you got to listen to all these subtitles, on YouTube or whatever. But we hope our humour and our fun, glosses over our mistakes and our shortcomings and our butchering of international names, and people enjoy it because that's what we want. So what we'll do is we'll go on to some news. We'll fly through some of the news as much as possible. Quickly, Mikel hasn't given us an update, but he has let slip that he will be sending an update soon. It will probably be out by the time this podcast will be out, but if you are,
This is the card game?
this is with the card game. So if you are a paper for that, make sure you keep an eye on that update regarding that very soon. And we did get a bit of a sneak of what that is, and I enjoyed that. Now, regarding the board game update, what's interesting, and I do want to touch upon this a little bit, is that the game won't be delivered before Christmas. The game will probably be in the first quarter of 2021. Maybe if it keeps getting delayed, they just save on postage and just give it to everyone at Supernova if there's any more delays. But what is interesting is that the trade paperback is ready to be sent out. Apparently it's been sent out to the international Kickstarter campaigners, followers, pledgers, whatever the word is, but it hasn't been sent out to the Australian readers or the Australian pledgers, and it's also not for sale on the Frew website. What are your thoughts about that?
I just thought it was going to come with the board game, so I hadn't really given it too much thought.
So here's a question. Should it come out before, i.e. Christmas is a brilliant time for it to be released, or should it only come out when the board game is ready to be sent out?
I reckon it should only come out when the board game's ready to be sent out. That was how it was sold at the time. It's linked to the board game. I would think that if it's suddenly for sale, then we all know that there are extra copies of the board game that are going to be available for sale by Frew. So that would be a great link in. So I think, for mine, it should probably wait until the board game's available. And while we're on it, the delay in the board game, there are going to be people who are upset about that. I'm not one of them because I'm probably a bit more patient, I suppose. And for me, the money's been spent and I've forgotten about it. And when the board game arrives, it's going to feel like a free board game because it's been so long since I paid for it. But the global economy and Australia's relationship with China, we know, if you read the newspapers at the moment, is in a perilous state. So it is what it is, and the delay is absolutely beyond the control of the people behind the Kickstarter campaign. So if people are getting upset about the delay in the delivery of the board game, just hold your roll, is what I would say. Just be calm, be relaxed, wait for it, it'll come. And when it comes, it'll come with the trade paperback, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. I hope it comes out with the game and not before.
Yes.
I think it will be, the fan inside of me wants to hurry up and get it and read it. I'm interested in seeing the whole thing in colour and seeing the next part that we haven't seen yet. So I'm intrigued about that. I want to hurry up and read it, but I think there's the possibility that there will be negative press that is not needed or not necessary for an extra few dollars if Frew decide to release it earlier.
Yeah, I think if it suddenly was to appear on the website and anyone could buy it, then the people who had backed the Kickstarter campaign could probably quite rightly feel like they didn't get the exclusive that they were signing up for when they pledged for the trade paperback back in the day.
Yeah,
You'd be pretty annoyed.
Yeah, and not everyone will be, but there will be some. And I just don't think it's. I just don't think it's a while. Me personally, I'm not a businessman. I've tried to run a business. I failed at that. I'm just a person who slugs for the man. But if it was me, I would wait before you sell it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the other exciting news is that we have an online Phantom catch-up. Now, I'm looking forward to it. I really enjoyed the last one that we had middle of the year, smack bang in the middle of COVID. So this Phantom catch-up is going to be on Saturday, the 12th of December. Now,
Which is smack bang in the middle of COVID, depending on where you live.
Yes,
In Australia, it feels like we're out the other end of COVID, and we certainly do empathise with people who are not quite there. But yeah, very much looking forward to the catch up.
Yes. So now this is going to be 9 p.m. AEST time, which is going basically Sydney or Melbourne time. So with daylight saving. So for instance, that's going to be 9 p.m. Melbourne, Sydney, Hobart time. Perth, 6 p.m. Adelaide, 8:30 p.m. New York is probably not the best time, which is 5 a.m. Los Angeles, which is even worse time, which is going to be 2 a.m. So I'm sorry about that for all our Phantom fans in Los Angeles.
Jamie Diaz is going to get up nice and early to spend some time with us on a 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm sure. In New
5
York.
o'clock's not that bad.
I wake up at 5 o'clock daily. I don't think there's anything wrong with 5 o'clock. And what about Queensland? You haven't given the Queensland times.
Mate, I'll tune in 1974.
If you are in Oslo or Sweden, you're on the same time zone, which is 11 a.m. on the Saturday. If you are in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, that will be 7 a.m. London will be 10 a.m. And if you are one of our many Indian followers, that will be 3:30 p.m. as well. So it can be wild, it could be fun, it could be awesome. So we hope to see you then. And if you do come, there will be a prize or two. And one of the prizes will be, if you're looking on YouTube, one of those.
And also, if you can't remember all those times that Jermaine's listed off, go check out the website. They're all listed there under
yes.
What's it called? Online Phantom Fan Catch Up, Saturday, 12th of December. So go check that out. You'll see a nice little strip that's been reappropriated I really like it. There's an invitation to you all, and there's a list of times down there to help you out.
Yeah, that was a bit of fun doing that strip. Should have been doing some work, but I just thought, I'm overworked for this week. I'm going to have a bit of fun. And that's what we want this Phantom catch-up to be, is a bit of fun. Just so you are aware, last time it actually went for 4.5 hours. You don't have to come for the whole time. Like if you're someone like Chris Hill, who falls asleep by 8:30 p.m., he lasted about half hour to an hour, and then you get some mad people that like to stay up the whole time, i.e. Paul Mason, who doesn't sleep. So so come, whether it's for 10 minutes, whether it's for the whole time, come and let's have some fun.
Cool bananas. What do we got next? We got a Crooked Dice Games miniature pieces.
Yes. Now, before we cut to Mikkel's video, Stephen, have you brought these?
No.
Dan, I believe you've brought some.
I have, but they haven't arrived yet. Have you? You've actually got them in your hands?
I've got them in my hands. Now, again, if you're on YouTube, or if you're not on YouTube, you might want to watch it. Or we have posted Mikkel's video, which is them painted. But for those on YouTube, this is what they look like unpainted.
They're tiny.
Yeah, about the size of the old army men by the looks of things.
Yeah. So, for instance, I'm just trying to think of something.
Would it be like have you got the board game Cluedo? I don't know if you got a more modern version of it, but we bought one, I don't know, a year or two ago, and the figures on that, they look about the same size.
For perspective, Germ, do you have a pin of any kind that you could hold up next to it?
Or even a keyring.
Or a keyring?
So say, for instance, this beautiful keyring here, which is, I believe, 60 mils, which gives you a bit of an idea. Now, this is another Phantom figurine, which is from Norway, I believe. That's about 3 or 4 inches, I think about 4 inches. You can see the size difference there. It is very small, which makes the painted version that Mikkel has, she's about to show in the video, all the more amazing, where the level of detail is amazing. Like when he showed us the painted, I'm thinking, oh yeah, they must be like this big or something. But could you imagine the size of the paintbrush? You must be using like a toothpick to be able to paint the level of detail on here. Like you've got, I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's the triangle of the Phantom's gun belt is there.
Well, and that's the thing. Painted or not, the level of detail on something that small is pretty impressive. The Warhammer pieces is something that's probably a similar sort of size as well. And I hadn't purchased these because they're unlicensed to the point where they're not even called the Phantom and Diana. They're not really Phantom. No, the Mist and Evelyn. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So they're not even they're trying not to be the Phantom and Diana. But after I saw Mikkel's video, I was like, well, I have to get a copy. And they're so affordable, like £8 each.
Yeah.
Or sorry, €8, whatever it was.
No, £8. £8.
Yeah.
So
really, really quite cheap for, that's about 20 Australian dollars, which is what we say we pay for everything. We don't pay that for anything, but to be able to pay that for these is pretty incredible.
Yeah, $20 is the universal language for saying to your wife, I overspent, but I don't want you to know that.
That's right. But now this is actually $20.
Look at the size of it.
Yeah.
But I personally think they're worth buying. I really like mine. I'm going to buy some more, and I am going to get them painted.
Was it $20 for them for the two, or was it $20 each?
$20
for two.
You can only buy the two, and there's others. There's Doc Savage, there's the Rocketeer, there's a whole heap of pulp figures. Again,
none of which are known by those names for copyright reasons.
Yes, and to be honest,
so the figures that look like Rocketeer.
Yeah, I don't normally buy a lot of unlicensed things, but I brought these in a heartbeat. I'm happy with them. Mikkel, I can't remember the guy who's painted them for Mikkel, but they did a brilliant job. So what we'll do is we'll cut away to Mikkel, who will show us the painted versions, and we will come back in a second.
Show you off these beautiful minis. Let's see if I can. Yeah, that's the focus. This is called Evelyn the Explorer model, and this beautiful one is the comic book superhero The Mist, but he looks quite similar to another hero I like. These two figures are made by Crooked Dice Game Design Studio, and they made a lot of others that are similar to heroes we know, but of course these are not licensed products. My beautiful paintings are made by Andrew from the Wii Gamer and Bunker Club. I love this paint job. Just the color the Mist should have.
I also, like you, Germ, am planning on getting someone who can actually paint. I'm going to go to my local comic book store and get them to hit me up with somebody who they know is nerdy in this area, and I'm going to outsource that so a good job is actually done, because the versions that Mikkel has just shown us are unreal, and yes, I expect nothing less from the ones that I'm going to put on my shelf.
We've actually got a Warhammer shop here in Ballarat, so...
there you go.
Yeah, I'll have to get myself spend my $20 and then pop down there and say, look, you got anyone who can paint these?
Yes.
Probably cost you more than 20 to get them painted.
Yeah, that might be right too.
Yeah. Okay, so something else has happened is Mythos on one of our friends' video podcasts, I guess you can call it, Phantasma Brazil, has talked about their publishing changes and also their 2021 schedule. So they've kind of mapped it all out. Again, this link of the bullet points as well as the full video is all on our website. So make sure you go have a look at that. A couple of the key changes, I won't spend too much time on it, is that they won't be publishing any Team Fantomen stories in 2021. They'll be post-Fawkes death stories, artists. So that will be Olson and Williams, Nolan, Paul Ryan, Terry Beattie, Mike Manley, Eduardo. I'm missing some people. Mike Manley. I think that might be it. If I missed someone, please forgive me. So those type of artists. And one of the reasons they are probably choosing those artists is very similar as why Regal are doing it as well, is because a lot of those stories have never been officially published in India before. So it gives the older fans a chance to read something new. They will be also publishing some extras. I think there's a mask. They're also going to be publishing a King Features book, which is going to have the Phantom, Flash Gordon, Mandrake, Beely Beatty, and a lot of these other type of characters in the one book. So that could be quite interesting to get as well. Now, again, if you're a completist, your best bet is to basically find a Brazil, a Phantasma fan, and basically do a swap with them. That's the best way to do it. It's what I do. It's what Dan does, and I know a lot of other Australian and international fans do the same as well. Now, Stephen, do you have a cuppa handy?
No, I've seen a run sheet and I've realised that I don't have a cup in here. I'm in. For those of you who are listening, I'm back in the car today. We're recording a little bit late, and I didn't want to keep the family up. However, if I was recording back at my desk, I could just easily reach over and grab a mug that I've recently got. But seeing as I don't have it now, if you're watching on YouTube, you can go check out my video. I made up a pretty cool video. It was good.
I enjoyed your video, Steve, and it drove me to take my daughter for a walk through Sanity the other day, and I had to look for where they kept their mugs, but I saw the Phantom mug up on the shelf, and I pointed out to her, she who has just got a part-time job and now had got control of her own funds, that Christmas is coming, and look at that. There's a Phantom heat change mug up on the shelf, and that's the sort of thing I'd really love for Christmas. But I guess I don't have that at the moment. And I kept walking. But your video was inspirational, and and hopefully something mug shaped is wrapped up under the tree for me this year.
Yes. Now, if you are a Phantom fan and you want to drop the subtle hint to your loved one, your partner, your kids, or whatever, just tag them in the social media post, and maybe they'll get the hint. But you mentioned Sanity. Was it a bit of a buzz, Stephen, hunting through Sanity? We know you're a musician, so you probably go to Sanity quite often. Was it a buzz going to Sanity and being able to pick up a CD or a record or whatever you pick up at Sanity these days, as well as something Phantom? Was that a buzz?
Yeah, it was definitely unexpected. I really did not expect to get a Phantom mug at Sanity. So when really across the I don't know, concourse or whatever you call it, there's a I don't even know. I want to say Smoke Mart or something like that. One of those shops. Yeah. What used to be What's New and those sort of things. That's not What's New anymore. Which I would have thought would have the mug in there, but they didn't. And neither did my local comic shop hasn't got it yet either. But Sanity's your go-to on this one at the moment. And apparently, sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say it was really interesting actually walking through the store, because Sanity always used to be about DVDs and CDs. And they've still got those, but of course all of the streaming, your Spotifys and your Netflixes make those pretty much redundant. I was amazed at how many knickknacks and that sort of thing Sanity's starting to get in there. They had an entire jigsaw aisle, which I guess is COVID inspired, but suddenly Sanity's your home for jigsaws. Yep,
and well, I did go into JB Hi-Fi recently too. I didn't see the mug there, but they've got a stack of jigsaws as well.
Yeah, crazy.
And talking about jigsaws...
Why? What's going on with jigsaws?
Another brilliant Christmas present is the fact that there is a new puzzle Phantom related from Ikon Collectibles, which we only assume will be related on Sanity from Sanity as well.
Well, the heat change mug is Ikon, and the wall banner that they've got for pre-order is going to be available through Sanity as well. So I guess this puzzle may be appearing in Sanity stores too.
It's getting fans back into Sanity.
Yeah, and we're not a Sanity blog, so we won't spend too much time on them.
Although if they do want to sling a few bucks our way, we're always listening, and our PayPal account is chroniclechamber@gmail.com.
Very good.
If we see an email from Sanity, we can keep saying Sanity.
Yeah, until our listeners have lost their sanity. But it's Ikon Collectibles. We know has the big, expensive figurines and stuff like that. And I think what is important for the Phantom is that we have our high-end collectibles, but then we also have our lower, cheaper,
the affordable
Christmas gift presents or Father's Day type of presents. And they've timed it really well with the mug out in November and now the puzzle for December. Everyone's doing jigsaw puzzles. So, if realistically, Dan, you could get your 3 kids between them could get you two presents of the Phantom, which is probably a nice change from a new head warmer beanie or a razor or something like that you probably...
What are you suggesting?
I think it's great. All, big tick to Ikon and Sanity and everyone else involved for bringing out some good items in time for Christmas.
I think it's a great partnership. We've talked about Frew going into Coles, Ikon going into Sanity. It's not something we would have expected, and hopefully it just puts the product out there in front of a few more people.
Yeah.
And of course, if you find the products in other stores, let us know so we can give them a shout out as well.
Absolutely.
And a huge shout out to Sean Bassett, who actually was the one who gave us the heads up for the Sanity ahead of time as well. So, and while we're talking about new products, we were quite excited when we managed to figure out this news, and we did a little bit of investigation and stuff like that between the group of us. We contacted a few different contacts from around the world, and we were able to confirm that there is actually a new KFS style guide, which we are going to see some of the images and the logos and stuff like that in 2021 for the 85th anniversary. So, so I was pretty excited about that. It's nice to see something fresh.
Yeah, I'd probably just pick you up on 2 points. One, KFS and Merchant-wise are keen to say that it's not actually a style guide as such, but there's a new logo and some new character art. I'm not sure what the difference is between new logos and new character arts and calling that a new style guide. That's a technicality, but I will just put it out there that that's what they're saying.
That's what they're saying, but what it is a new style guide.
And also, well, I guess they don't have because the jungle green colour has been part of the style guide over the last X amount of years, and they haven't stipulated. Anyway, doesn't matter. The other thing is, I don't actually think they brought it out specifically for the 85th anniversary. I think it's just a happy coincidence because at no point have there's nothing in there that suggests 85th. So it'll be nice that some of the 85th anniversary stuff has got a new feel to it, and it feels a bit more fresh. But I don't think that KFS have put that much thought into it to say that this is the reason.
You'll be right, because KFS, let's be honest, from our experience, do not really care or have that much foresight. But the fact is that we're getting something fresh, and that it is the 85th next year, and it's a happy coincidence, maybe. But it's good to see something fresh, which is what I'm happy about. The design of the logo, I think, is a bit busy, especially with the surrounding edge or shadow of the actual logo. If they could lose that, I would be happier with that. I like the skull as the O. It's sort of been done before. And the images, I'm not a huge fan of them, but it's fresh. It's something more aimed probably towards the younger generation, and I'm interested and I'm hoping that I will be proven wrong and that the designs will grow on me and it will be something that I will like down the track.
The designs are by a comic book cover artist by the name of Amelia Vidal, who's relatively well known in the Marvel world with a lot of character design for Marvel. Anyone who's been following or is a KFS fan or a King Features fan, and by extension, I guess Phantom, but would know that she is the cover artist for the Mandrake Legacy books, which we haven't really discussed because we're not a Mandrake podcast, we're a Phantom podcast, but you may be aware of them. Yeah, so
once. Now, if there's anyone out there that has read the issues and would like to do a review, I think at the moment issue 2 has just come out. I think it's a 4-part issue. So if there's anyone out there that would like to do a video review of the 4-part issue, just drop us a line at our email address, which is chroniclechamber@gmail.com.
Yeah. I think that I think it's an interesting fact in itself that this new style guide or these images that are being provided by KFS are drawn by a female artist in the first instance, because that's not something that has happened a lot in the Phantom universe. So to have it as the go-to or the actual default images is going to be interesting in itself. I don't know. I've had a good look at the designs, and at first glance, I was like, "Oh, that's not my Phantom in a sense." But the more I look at them, the more I like them, and I think there's lots of ways you could use those that would be really appealing. And I'm thinking, I guess, of the glow in the dark, the glow zone stickers. They remind me a little bit of those. I think that as stickers, as enamel pins, or anything else you'd like to do with them, I think they could look really stunning. So
also if you're having products aimed towards the younger generation as well.
Yeah, well, Amelia has most of her art. If you go and have a look at the body of work, she's clearly influenced by anime, in my opinion. Like just with the size of the eyes and the type of, and I might be completely wrong because I haven't done my thesis in arts. Or comic book art, so I could be completely wrong. But it does seem to be, it's a very modern look, which it's not Sybari, which, I guess is our go-to statement, but is just the case for what I guess a lot of fans expect. So I like it. The more time I spend with those images, the more I like them.
Yeah, and, like they were keen to say it's not kind of like replacing, it's probably additional to the current style guide. So what that allows is if you're creating a product that needs the classic Sybari, arms folded, jungle, green look that's very classical Phantom, that's perfect. But if you're looking for something that's a little bit cutting edge for the younger generation, say 30 and under and stuff like that, that's what you're going to be using. You don't want to use a Sybari look because it doesn't reach that target audience. So maybe you could call it an extension of this current style guide. But I think it's brilliant. Kudos to KFS and Hearst. We don't get to say that as much as I would like us to be able to say. So a huge thumbs up to those who have done that. You've done a good thing. Hopefully it means we can see some products aimed towards the younger generation and maybe even some more products. It is the 85th, so hopefully we can see some products for that as well. And talking about 85 years.
Well, and is this moving on to Malin? I'd just say that I really like the way that she's depicted Devil and Hero in particular in amongst those images. Anyway, I've now flicked back to the run sheet and I see that this is about Malin. So the Malin diary, the 2021 diary that's coming out, most people who have been following us or have subscribed to Malin will have seen this information. And the ad there's an ad for the diary in issue 1881. On the back cover of issue 1881, we're starting to see, Germ's holding it up. I've just found it as well. The order form for the Malin diary. That's progressing well. I think that from from my conversations with the compiler, she's starting to go a little bit batty with the amount of Phantom iconography and information that she's just delving through on a day-to-day basis. Looking forward to having that available for it's an 85th anniversary celebration. In I guess in the same sense that I just said that KFS have accidentally released something for the 85th anniversary. This is deliberately for the 85th anniversary, and so is starting to be timed for release mid-February, which is 17th of February, which would be the actual 85th anniversary. So probably not ideal if you're actually going to use it as a diary, but from everything we can see about this volume, it's much more than just a diary. It's a reference book as much as anything else.
Now, to be as open as possible, and I'm weary for time because I think Stephen's falling asleep.
Yep, probably.
Need to breathe a bit deeper.
Yeah, I think it will be amiss of us not to put our cards on the deck and actually say that we have been involved a little bit in this diary reference book. We won't say too much, but in an earlier podcast we said some things, and I guess they said, well, you've got some opinions. How about you
put up or shut up?
Yeah, put up or shut up. And so we have been involved in some of the work in this, and hopefully we'll be able to. I'm not sure what we can say or what we can't say, so I'll just leave it at that. And then hopefully, as it gets closer, we might even be able to get them on the podcast or be able to actually tell us a little bit more about it. But keep an eye on our website, on our social, because I would assume there will be a lot more announcements and notes and stuff like that coming up.
Absolutely. And look, we would also acknowledge that the price point of this is more expensive than people are probably used to from the Malin Diaries. It'll be interesting to see what fans get in terms of bang for their buck. But the image that's been released in that advertisement that we both just held up there in the back of 1881 has got the pencils of the Cy Barry limited edition print that's going to come with the limited edition version. That looks pretty cool. We know that is going to be coloured with watercolours, which is Cy's current, passion. I guess he's really exploring his watercolours, and that's going to look pretty spectacular, I would have thought. So once you get that in full size, in colour, and all the rest of it, as a limited edition print, yes, it's going to be costly. Is it going to be worth it? Well, if you're a proper collector, then it probably is.
Yeah. All right, cool. So we'll shoot on. We'll try and cover some more Phantom news. Just briefly, there was a nice Phantom cameo in Beatty Bealey issue 18-2020, which came out probably about a couple of months ago. The Phantom's in caricature on the front cover and in one of the stories as well. That was released in Norway, Finland, and Sweden. So it's good to see the Phantom still holding a nice, it's still seeing the Phantom in those countries and being an iconic enough character to be in popular media as well. Now, Stephen, can you quickly show us something?
Yeah, so anyone who's been on Facebook recently...
if you're on, make sure you watch us on this bit on Facebook, on YouTube as well.
On YouTube. And I'm just going to big up my screen so I can see what I'm doing. You may have seen Jason Paulos has been selling some of his original art. And so me, like I'm sure plenty of other people have done as well, had a bit of a search through, a bit of a scroll through what was on offer. And I found a couple that I was after. I got in contact with Jason and worked out what the prices are, and well, I can't afford everything that I want at the moment, but I was able to afford this. So this is it's page 3 of the Phantom from Gaslight, episode 8, which I think was in Frew 1844. From memory, it was a Grange cover. It was the Slaves.
You say that as if you haven't already sent it to the framers.
I may have been looking to see which one it was, but I don't have it here with me. Because when I got the art out, my youngest Jeremy, he was checking it out. He said, "It's so much bigger than the comic book, Dad." And so there was a bit of a lesson there in how they do the comics. So saying, letting him know that this is actually what the artist drew on, or created the art on, and then that gets scanned and come into the comics. So so I really like this page, and something that I forgot to mention. Or maybe I did realise it when I was picking it, but Dan realised it pretty quick when I did my show off with you guys earlier. Not often you can get a page of Phantom art with 3 different Phantoms on it.
Yeah, it's a brilliant point.
So we got the Phantom, we got Julie, and we've got, I can't remember the other fellow's name, but the other Phantom with the loincloth, Tarzan Phantom, for lack of a better word. And I really like this because it's got plenty of action. The hero's looking strong, and I really wanted something where Julie was looking strong as well. And so doing the big old skull punch on the bad guy there,
it's pretty strong.
I think you don't get much stronger than that. And it also came with, Jason also threw in pencils, which might be a bit harder to see on the camera now. But the bottom section of the page, I use his pencil roughs for that. So I'm really happy with it. I really like the way it's come out, and I've got to put it in a nice spot now.
So Jason's been posting, basically his fire sale's the wrong word, because it's not. He's not throwing it out for.
No,
tips. It's not like he's trying to trade out of Collingwood. But he's really put all of his Phantom artwork up for sale to try and raise funds for another project that he's doing. So if you're at all interested in Jason Paulus art, and why wouldn't you be, then go and check him out on the social medias, Facebook in particular, to follow through to the links of everything he's got for sale. And I know that Jermaine, both you and I are planning on following in Stephen's footsteps at some time in the near future and picking up some of his art.
Just need to save up your $20 a bit more.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not actually $20.
No.
You did a great piece there. So Stephen, is that your Christmas present or?
I had screwed away a bit of cash over the last couple of months, and so it was just timing rather than anything. So I just happened to have the cash, and so I got it.
Awesome. So it was a great piece. You've done well. I guess it's a perfect time to discuss. Do you guys have certain Christmas presents that you are looking forward for, Phantom related, or?
Well, I wouldn't mind the puzzle. I don't have that.
Yeah, awesome.
That would be the things for me. Like, as I said, taking my daughter through Sanity. If the puzzle turns up there as well, if I can get both of those things, the mug and the puzzle, then I'll consider myself well looked after from a Phantom point of view. I have been watching the Wilson McCoy art that's been appearing on the Heritage auctions, and there was one piece that I was very, very keen on, and a lot of Wilson McCoy art had been going for that $50, $60 mark, and I thought, wow, there's this one piece, if I can pick that up, and I was prepared to go to $800 or $900 on it, and while I wasn't looking, it sold for $3,500. So I'm going to need to become a bit more. I'm going to have to save a few more shekels before I can be affording those sorts of things.
Yeah, and I guess we're living in a real golden time. We won't spend too much longer, but we're living in a real golden time where Phantom art is affordable, but it's also readily available. You can buy art from Wilson McCoy, Cy Barry, Mike Manley's selling it, Jeff Weigel is selling it. I believe Terry Beattie still has some pages for sale as well. But, there's 5 newspaper artists. Keith Williams.
And even Graham Nolan put some pages up to do with his Kickstarter that he had up recently.
Yeah. So with that, Keith Williams, there's 7 artists in the last probably the last 70 years that have drawn the Phantom that you can buy original art from, and not to mention comic book artists like Jason Paulos, who you just showed there, and there's plenty of other artists out there who are selling their pages as well, and it's not ridiculous prices that like you would expect to see with Batman and some of the more
that's it.
artists. So brilliant Christmas wish lists, good ideas, and then if you don't have the funds for that, of course there is the mug and stuff like that. And if you are a Patreon user as well, talking about Christmas gifts, this has been a bit of a fun project, and this is something we've actually been organised for the last month, and it has absolutely been very hard for me to keep this under our hat. But for those Patreons, if you're a Patreon level from $5 or over, or you have been with us for donkey's years, we have already sent out to our Patreons some stickers, and I'll just show these up here as I'm talking because it's probably on me there. So these are 60mm little stickers, circle ones. We have pins, which I will get nice and close. These came out a little bit dark, but I still think they're pretty cool. It's with the logo by Grange Wallace, so a huge shout out to Grange. So this pin, it's probably about a 30mm, maybe 25mm, I think it is, and then a key ring as well. Now, I will admit, I put one of these on my wife's set of keys as soon as I got it, and it was a couple of days before she noticed, and she was like, "Oh, how did you get that on there?" She didn't know about these as well, so there's a key ring. But like I said, if you're one of our patrons at a $5 level or more, or you've been with us for a long period of time, we have sent a sticker, a key ring, and a pin to you. If you're from an international Patreon, please be patient. I did send them out. I didn't do a Frew. I sent them out at the same time as everyone else. But basically, we just wanted to say thank you to our Patreons. You mean a lot to us. You help us pay the bills. You help us pay for cool projects that we've got coming up and stuff like that. Without what you do, we can't do everything that we do. So from the bottom of our hearts, I just want to say thank you for 2020 especially. It's a hard year. I know people that have lost their jobs and they're still supporting us and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
So,
and I guess now's a good time to mention the next little gift that we'll be giving to our patrons as well, and that's relation to episode 176. Which is coming out next. There's going to be a little sneak thing that you can see through the Patreons. Jermaine's waggled it there in front of the camera.
If you're on YouTube, you'll be able to see this if I hold it still, but nice and thick. What is this?
No, that's it. And so Patrons, watch your emails before the next podcast drops, because there's going to be a link to something that you're going to want to have a look at before episode 176 of the pod.
And it's world exclusive.
Yes, this absolutely.
This is, along with our bushfire book, the best thing that has happened with being associated with Chronicle Chamber for 2020. This was an amazing exclusive. We got to a sneak where no one else has gotten. This like I said before about the stickers and that being hard to keep to myself. This is a lot harder to keep.
I'm really impressed, Jim, because you're keeping secrets to yourself is not in your wheelhouse, and so for you to be able to get this is really impressive.
This is big. This is big. Big news. And again,
we're selling it. We really are selling it here. You better edit it well.
People who are still listening 2 hours in are going to listen to the next podcast, whatever we say. So it'll be okay.
Yeah, exactly. So make sure you listen. Patreon, again, a huge thanks to you guys. If you would like to become a Patreon, you can do that by there's various links on our show notes in this So Stephen's yawning and making me yawn and losing concentration.
Go to patreon.com and search for Chronicle Chamber. You'll be fine.
And there's also links on our website as well. So a huge shout out to everyone who does that. Now we'll quickly wrap up and then we'll say goodbye. So if you want to find out more about us, you can at chroniclechamber.com, which is our website. Our email address is chroniclechamber@gmail.com. So if you want to write an article or do a review on the Mandrake series or anything else that comes out, please drop us an email. You can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Spotify or via apps like Podbean, Player FM, Castbox, Listen Notes, or you can watch us on YouTube. So for myself, thank you for our listeners for listening to this. Dan, Stephen, as always, happy Phantoming and thank you.
Happy Phantoming.
Happy Phantoming and happy birthday, Joan.
Years ago, he washed ashore the sole survivor of a shipwreck, and upon the skull of the man who killed his dad, he said, "I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice and cruelty, and all my sons will follow me, so evildoers will believe that this man cannot die."
The Phantom,
The ghost who walks,
the Phantom,
enemies beware, the Phantom's always there, but you won't find the Phantom. He finds you.